There is a moment quiet, often overlooked when the world seems to speak directly to you. A book falls open to the exact page you needed to read. A thought of an old friend is answered by their sudden message. A dream image steps, impossibly, into your waking life. We are taught to call these moments coincidence, mere chance, the random collision of unrelated events in an indifferent universe. But what if we have been dismissing a deeper kind of grammar? What if, woven into the fabric of our days, there is a hidden language of meaning? This is not a call to superstition, but to a more attentive way of seeing. It is an invitation to explore a concept that stands at the very edge of our understanding: synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence, and a causal connection between the inner world of the psyche and the outer world of events. It is the story of how one man, haunted by inexplicable whispers, devoted his life to listening, and what he heard whispers back about the nature of reality itself. His name was Carl Gustav Jung. From the beginning, his life was punctuated by the unexplained. As a child, Carl Jung experienced phenomena that seemed to fracture the solid world. He feared the stirrings were madness, but within that fear was a question, one that would become the compass point of his life. What do these experiences mean? He once recounted a vision, vivid and terrible: yellow waves, swimming rubble, the death of countless thousands. An inner voice spoke with unwavering certainty: "Look at it. It is completely real, and it will come to pass. You cannot doubt this." 2 weeks later, the vision returned, more violent than before. Soon after, the First World War began. For Jung, this was a pivotal revelation. It was not a prophecy of doom, but a key. The vision did not come from a personal illness, a schizophrenic break. It seemed to well up from a deeper, more ancient place, what he would later call the collective unconscious, a psychic subsoil shared by all humanity, containing the patterns, the archetypes of human experience. His dreams were not just his own. They were taps into a shared underground stream. The pressing question took shape in his mind: how were such meaningful events not linked by any visible chain of cause and effect even possible? What does their existence say about the universe we inhabit? His personal life continued to offer puzzles. Studying at home, he heard a sound like a pistol shot. Rushing in, he found a solid dining table, inexplicably split from the rim to beyond its center. Weeks later, another crack this time. A bread knife inside a cupboard had shattered into pieces. There was no physical force applied, no logical explanation, only the unsettling fact of the event, standing like a stone in a stream, disrupting the smooth flow of cause and effect. As a young psychiatrist, he turned his scientific mind toward these mysteries. He attended seances, studied the occult and parapsychology. He wrote his medical dissertation on the psychology of so-called occult phenomena. He was not a credulous believer, but a map-maker in uncharted territory, using the tools of observation and reason to explore landscapes that reason alone could not fully conquer. A famous encounter illustrates this lifelong tension. Jung was in deep conversation with Sigmund Freud, his mentor, about parapsychology. Freud, a strict materialist, dismissed Jung's curiosities as nonsense. As Freud spoke, Jung felt a strange, burning sensation in his diaphragm. At that exact moment, a loud explosive crack came from the bookcase beside them. Both men jumped back, alarmed. Jung saw a connection. "There," he said, "that is an example of a so-called catalytic exteriorization phenomenon. Freud called it sheer bosh." "It is not," Jung replied. And then, with a certainty he could not explain, he predicted, "In a moment, there will be another such loud noise, And another detonation shook the bookcase. Jung wrote later, "To this day I do not know what gave me this certainty, but I knew beyond all doubt that the report would come again." Where did that certainty come from? It was not deduction. It was not a guess. It was a knowing, emerging from somewhere beyond the conscious mind. This is the terrain of synchronicity, not cause and effect, but a dance of meaning between psyche and world. The concept crystallized for Jung through a series of meaningful convergences. In 1928, he was immersed in painting mandalas, intricate, circular images that emerged from his inner work, symbols of wholeness and the self. During this time, the sonologist Richard Wilhelm sent him a gift, a translation of an ancient Taoist text, The Secret of the Golden Flower. It was a Chinese alchemical manual on achieving wholeness through meditation. Jung opened it and was astonished. Here, in a text 1,000 years old, from a culture geographically and historically distant from his own, was the same symbolic language. The Chinese mandala, the golden castle, mirrored the one taking shape under his own brush. It was a spark leaping across continents and centuries. He wrote of this moment, "The spark leapt across and kindled a light that was to become for me one of the most significant events of my life." This was no longer just personal oddity. This was a pattern revealing itself. The human psyche, in its deepest reaches, seemed to produce the same forms, the same symbols, across all barriers of time and space. The mandala was one such form, a symbol of the center, the self, the point around which the personality organizes itself. From this confluence of East and West, of psychology and ancient wisdom, Jung found a name for the principle he had long sensed. He called it synchronicity. He first mentioned it publicly in 1930, in a memorial address for Richard Wilhelm. He described it as a peculiar principle active in the world, so that things happen together somehow and behave as if they were the same, and yet for us they are not. He equated it with the Chinese concept of the Tao, the ultimate, ineffable reality, the union of opposites, the flow of life. It echoed the alchemist's creed, as above, so below. The inner world and the outer world are not separate kingdoms. They are mirrored realms, and synchronicity is the moment when the mirror clears, and one recognizes itself in the other. The aim of the Taoist sage is to live in harmony with this flow, to avoid the extremes, to find the balancing point. Jung realized this was also the goal of his psychology. Individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, by integrating the conscious ego with the vast, unknown territory of the unconscious. It is not a linear evolution, but a circumambulation, a circling around the sacred center of the self, and in this process, synchronicity plays a vital role. It is a signpost from the unconscious, a nudge from the universe, a moment of meaning that says, "You are on the path, pay attention." But what, precisely, is it? Jung defined synchronicity as the meaningful coincidence of outer and inner events that are not causally linked. Causality is the grammar of our everyday world. I strike a billiard ball with a cue. The ball moves. Cause, then effect. It is a statistical truth, a reliable way of navigating physical reality. Synchronicity exists on a different axis. It is not about sequence, but about simultaneity and significance. An inner event, a dream, a vision, a powerful thought or mood manifests in outer reality, not as a consequence, but as a parallel expression. The emphasis is on the word meaningful. It resonates. It feels significant to the observer. It is as if the universe is offering a comment, completing a sentence you only thought in your mind. The word itself derives from Greek, syn together and chronos time, happening at the same time. A coincidence is just that, things occurring together. A synchronicity is a coincidence that carries a charge of meaning, that seems to speak a message only you can fully hear. Jung's investigations led him to a revolutionary and controversial conclusion. Synchronicity isn't a causal connecting principle. It operates outside the chain of cause and effect. This was not mysticism for its own sake. He sought collaboration with the hard sciences. He found an extraordinary partner in the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Wolfgang Pauli. Pauli, a pioneer of quantum physics, was also a man plagued by powerful dreams and a troubled personal life. He came to Jung for analysis. Their collaboration was a meeting of two frontiers, the frontier of the inner world and the frontier of the subatomic world. Both were realms where classical logic broke down, where particles could be in two places at once, where an observer's consciousness could influence an outcome, where paradox was built into the fabric of things. Together, over nearly 20 years of correspondence, they explored the idea that synchronicity was the psychological equivalent of the strange, non-local, causal connections appearing in quantum physics. In 1952, they published a joint work, The Interpretation of Nature and the Psyche. Jung's essay was titled Synchronicity and a Causal Connecting Principle. They proposed that at the deepest level of reality, a level Jung called the psychoid archetype, the borderland where psyche and matter are indistinguishable, there is a unitary world, the annus mundus, the one world. In this primordial layer, all is connected. Separation is an illusion of our conscious, categorizing minds. Synchronicity is a glimpse through the veil of that separation. It is a crack in the wall between subject and object, through which we see, however briefly, the underlying unity. Jung wrote, if mandala symbolism is the psychological equivalent of the annus mundus, then synchronicity is its parapsychological equivalent. To understand this abstract principle, we must turn to stories, for synchronicity is lived experience. Jung collected these moments like clues, and he shared them to illustrate the texture of this hidden language. There is the story of the French poet Émile Deschamps. As a boy, he was given a piece of plum pudding by a Monsieur de Forgibou. 10 years later, in a Paris restaurant, he saw plum pudding on the menu and ordered some, only to be told the last portion had just been taken by Monsieur de Forgibou. Many years later, Deschamps was at a dinner where plum pudding was served as a rare delicacy. He joked, all we need now is Monsieur de Forgibou. At that moment, the door opened, and an elderly, confused man entered, de Forgibou, who had mistaken the address. There is the story of the woman and the fox. Jung was walking in the woods with a patient. She told him about the first powerful dream she could remember, a spectral fox coming down the stairs in her childhood home. At that exact moment, a real fox stepped out of the trees 40 yards ahead and walked calmly along the path before them for several minutes. The animal, Jung wrote, behaves as if it were a partner in the human situation. The fox, a symbol of instinctive cleverness, had emerged from her inner world to walk beside her in the outer. There is the story of the student and Spain. A friend of Jung's dreamed in precise detail of walking through a Spanish city, a specific street, a square with a Gothic cathedral, turning right onto another street where an elegant carriage drawn by two cream-coloured horses awaited. He told his friends the dream over beer. Later, after passing his exams, he travelled to Spain. He entered a city, and with a shock of recognition, found himself on the street from his dream. He found the square, the cathedral. Driven by curiosity, he turned right at the corner, and there, before him, was the carriage with the two cream-coloured horses. These are not just odd tales. They are encounters with a pattern. They suggest a foreknowledge, an a priori understanding that exists outside of time. They hint that the linear arrow of time past, present, future may be a construction of our conscious minds. In the deeper reality of the annus modus, all may exist simultaneously. The dream and the event are not cause and effect. They are two leaves growing from the same hidden root. Perhaps Jung's most famous clinical example is the scarab. He was treating a highly rational, intellectually defended young woman. Her therapy was stuck. She could not access her unconscious emotions. During a session, she told him a dream in which she was given a golden scarab, an Egyptian symbol of rebirth and transformation. As she spoke, Jung sat with his back to a closed window. Suddenly, he heard a gentle tapping. He turned and saw a flying insect knocking against the window pane. He opened the window and caught it as it flew in. It was a rosechafer beetle, the closest analogue to a golden scarab found in that part of Europe, an insect that, contrary to all its usual habits, seemed driven to enter a dark room. At that precise moment, Jung handed the living beetle to his patient. "Here is your scarab," he said. The ice of her intellectual resistance shattered. The synchronistic event, this impossible, living symbol from her dream, reached her where words could not. It was a moment of transformation. Her rigid ego yielded, and a process of rebirth began. But Jung was a scientist, not a guru. He cautioned that this territory requires discernment. Synchronicity can be pathological if misunderstood. The mind, particularly in states of inflation or illness like schizophrenia, can see meaning in everything, interpreting random events as a grandiose, self-referential narrative. The psychotic's interpretation, Jung noted, is morbidly narrow, because it is mostly restricted to the intentions of other people and to his own ego importance. True synchronicity is not about the ego being the center of the universe. It is about the ego humbly recognizing its place within a larger, meaningful pattern. It is a dialogue with the self, not a monologue of self-importance. The difference lies in the quality of the meaning, whether it expands your connection to life or contracts it into paranoid self-obsession. He also turned to experimental data. He referenced the work of J.B. Ryan at Duke University, who conducted pioneering experiments in extrasensory perception. In card-guessing tests, some subjects consistently scored far above statistical chance. In one remarkable instance, a subject guessed all 25 cards in a deck correctly, an event with a probability of about 1 in 298 quadrillion. These results suggested that the causal combination of events and mental intention matching an external reality was a real, if elusive, phenomenon that could be studied. Jung did not claim to have a complete theory. His goal was not to explain it all, but to open up an obscure field which is philosophically of the greatest importance. His interest was not merely academic. It was deeply human. He sought to understand the soul's experience of meaning and a world often stripped of it by rigid materialism. He saw synchronicities most often in the heightened emotional fields of psychotherapy, in the tension generated between analyst and patient when deep archetypal material was stirring, in that sacred container where two people are authentically engaged in the work of the soul. The veil between inner and outer seems to grow thin. The unconscious communications between them can manifest in shared symbols, in parallel thoughts, in physical events that resonate with the psychological process. This suggests that psychic life is not an isolated event inside our skulls. It is a shared, unitary realm. We are more connected to each other and to the world than our separate bodies suggest. The therapist and patient are not two sealed units exchanging words. They are participants in a shared field, and from that field, meaning can emerge in surprising, tangible ways. So, What are we to do with this? How do we live with the idea that the universe might be speaking in a language of meaningful coincidence? Jung's answer is deceptively simple. Pay attention. Synchronicities often accompany the crucial phases of our own individuation, times of decision, loss, transformation, or deep questioning. But too often, he noted, they pass unnoticed. We are not taught to watch for this language. We are taught to dismiss it. The invitation is to cultivate a quiet mindfulness, to notice when a series of events seems to cluster around a theme, to reflect on a striking dream and see if its imagery finds an echo in the following days, to pause when a chance encounter or a found object resonates with an inner struggle or question. Do not force it. Do not see meaning in every fallen leaf. That is the path of inflation. Instead, adopt an attitude of receptive curiosity. Be like a watcher by a stream, not demanding that the water speak, but ready to notice if a particularly shaped stone catches the light. When such an event occurs, hold it lightly. Let it live within you. Don't immediately dissect it for a literal message. Often, the meaning is not in a direct instruction, but in the simple or inspiring recognition of connection itself. It tells you that you are not alone in an alien universe. You are part of a patterned whole. Your inner life matters to the cosmos, and the cosmos participates in your inner life. It is a way of coming to realize, as Jung said, what is in our deepest undiscovered self. The synchronicity is a mirror held up by the world, showing you a fragment of your own wholeness that you had not yet seen. At the end of his long life, Jung's own dreams seemed to speak of completion. He dreamed of a high place, a boulder in the full sun, with words carved into it. Take this as a symbol of the wholeness you have achieved and the singleness you have become. He dreamed of trees, with roots intertwined with gold, the alchemical symbol of wholeness attained. He felt the collective unconscious saying to him, you have earned the freedom to move on. You have done your work. And in a final, poignant synchronicity that wove his life together with the world he studied, his friend Lawrence van der Post, sailing from Africa, dreamed of Jung waving goodbye. A few hours later, a thunderstorm swept over Jung's home. A bolt of lightning struck and shattered his favorite tree in the garden. Years later, when van der Post was filming a documentary at that same house and began to speak of that lightning strike, lightning struck the garden once more. The pattern completes itself. The inner farewell and the outer storm. The memory of an event and its literal repetition. The world within and the world without, whispering the same truth in different tongues. Synchronicity, then, is more than a curiosity. It is a potential orientation to life, a way of standing in the world that acknowledges mystery without surrendering reason, that finds meaning without imposing dogma. It suggests that our journey toward wholeness is not a solitary struggle, but a dialogue with a universe that is itself alive, responsive, and deeply patterned. It asks us to consider that every moment holds a double reality, the visible event and its invisible resonance, that the song of a bird outside your window, just as you read a line about freedom, is not just a bird and a line. It is a moment of potential poetry between your soul and the world. You are invited to listen for that poetry, not to decode life, but to converse with it, to move through your days not as a disconnected observer, but as a participant in a vast, meaningful, and mysteriously coordinated dance. Watch, listen, feel for the subtle tug on the thread that connects your heart to the heart of things. The next time a coincidence takes your breath away, pause, hold the moment. Ask not why did this happen, but what does this mean with me? For synchronicity is an ever-present reality, not for the few, but for those who choose to see with more than just their eyes. The world is speaking. It has been, all along. The real question is whether we have the courage and the quietness to understand the language